Before I begin, I want to say something. If you looked at the title, then you're probably wanting to raise your pitchforks and come after me like an angry mob. I love the clones. The Clone Wars was such a beautiful piece of Star Wars that largely went underappreciated. I'm not coming after the clones being bad or them being a bad part of Star Wars. No. Instead, if I had a choice in a battle where I could pick my choice of troops, I'm picking the droids hands down. The galaxy has always been a place of contrasts, light and dark, order and chaos, flesh and metal. Among the most fascinating contrasts is the debate between droids and clones during the Clone Wars. Both were created to serve, to fight, and to shape the destiny of the galaxy. But when you truly step back and examine their contributions, their flaws, and their legacies, it becomes clear that droids may have been the superior force. Clones were bred from a single template, trained for one purpose, and given just enough individuality to function as a team. They were undeniably skilled, but their humanity was both their greatest strength and their ultimate weakness. Droids, on the other hand, were machines, efficient, versatile, and disposable. They didn't feel pain, hesitate in the heat of battle, or question their purpose. That cold efficiency was often dismissed as a flaw, but was it really? When we think about the cost of war, it's easy to focus on the obvious. The destruction, the casualties, the resources. Yet the Clone Wars revealed a deeper price. The Republic's reliance on clones exposed uncomfortable truths about morality and justice. The Separatists, despite their many faults, understood something the Republic didn't, that machines could fight their wars without the same ethical burden. Droids, for all their imperfections, spared their creators from the guilt of sending living beings to die. The galaxy's history is full of lessons, and the story of clones and droids is one of the most telling. It's not just a tale of strategy and warfare. It's a reflection of priorities and values. Clones represented the Republic's struggle to maintain its ideals, while droids embodied the pragmatism of a galaxy at war. Each had its place, but one proved more enduring, more adaptable, and, in many ways, more vital to the galaxy's future. As we dive deeper into this discussion, we'll explore why droids were better than clones in nearly every way. From their design to their durability, their efficiency to their legacy, the evidence is clear. It's not just about which side won the war. It's about what the war revealed, about the choices the galaxy made, and the paths it chose to follow. The clones were engineered for war, no doubt about that, but that's where their purpose began and ended. They were soldiers, bred to follow orders without hesitation. That single-minded focus may seem admirable, but it's also limiting. Droids, on the other hand, were designed with a vast range of purposes. From protocol droids to astromechs to battle droids, their versatility outshines the clones in so many ways. When you think about the clones, they were all copies of one man. Sure, Jango Fett was an incredible warrior, but they all shared the same personality foundation. Droids, by contrast, could be uniquely programmed, tailored to specific roles. The galaxy thrived on variety, and the droids brought that variety to the table. It's also worth noting that droids didn't have the same moral dilemmas as clones. A droid didn't suffer from existential crises or question why it was fighting. Clones, though, had moments of doubt, confusion, and regret. These emotions might make them human, but it also made them vulnerable. A machine doesn't falter in the heat of battle, but a clone could. The galaxy's reliance on droids speaks volumes. The Republic, the Separatists, smugglers, and even the Jedi relied on them for critical tasks. Whether it was maintaining ships, translating alien languages, or engaging in battle, droids were essential to the galaxy's infrastructure. That kind of reliability is something clones just couldn't match. Clones were flesh and blood, and that was their greatest weakness. They could bleed, tire, and ultimately die. Droids, on the other hand, could be repaired. A damaged droid wasn't a casualty, it was an opportunity for maintenance. This durability gave droids an edge in any prolonged engagement. Imagine a battlefield littered with fallen clones. Each loss meant more training, more resources, and more time to replace them. A droid could be retrieved, patched up, and sent right back into the fight. The Separatists understood this, and it's why their droid armies were so massive. They didn't need replacements, just spare parts. Some might argue that clones were superior because they could adapt in the moment, but what good is adaptability if they're dead? A droid could take damage, process new instructions, and keep going. Clones, no matter how skilled, couldn't compete with that level of resilience. Even outside of battle, droids were built to last. Astromechs like R2-D2 served for decades, accomplishing more than any single clone ever could. That kind of longevity is a testament to their superiority. When the chips were down, the droids kept going, while clones faced the inevitable fragility of their humanity. There's something deeply unsettling about the idea of creating life solely for war. The clones were robbed of choice, forced into a life they didn't ask for. Droids, however, were machines, tools meant to serve. They didn't have to grapple with questions of free will or personal identity. Every clone was a person, yet they were treated as expendable. How could the Republic justify sending them into battle by the thousands, knowing they were living beings? Droids might lack a soul, but at least no one pretended they were anything more than machines. That clarity was far less cruel. Think about the emotional toll on the clones. They formed bonds with each other, with the Jedi, and even with the Republic itself. When one of them died, it wasn't just a loss on the battlefield, it was a personal tragedy. Droids didn't suffer in the same way. They didn't mourn, they didn't feel pain, and they didn't question their existence. The Republic's dependence on clones revealed a dark side to their ethics. They championed freedom and justice, yet they enslaved an entire army of sentient beings. The Separatists, for all their flaws, didn't pretend their droids were anything but tools. That honesty, grim as it was, carried its own kind of integrity. From a logistical standpoint, droids were far more cost-effective than clones. Creating and training clones required immense resources, time, and facilities. Droids, on the other hand, could be mass-produced quickly and cheaply. The Separatists leveraged this advantage to devastating effect. Clones needed food, shelter, and medical care. They were living beings after all, and their upkeep was a constant drain on the Republic's resources. Droids didn't need any of that. They didn't eat, sleep, or get sick. Their operational costs were minimal compared to the clones. The Republic poured so much into its clone army, yet it still couldn't match the sheer numbers of the Separatist droid forces. Quantity doesn't always equal quality, but in a war of attrition, the droids had the upper hand. They could afford losses that the clones simply couldn't. Even after the war, droids continued to serve the galaxy in countless ways. The clones, by contrast, became obsolete. Their cost-to-benefit ratio was lopsided from the start, and history proved it. The galaxy's reliance on droids wasn't just practical, it was inevitable. Droids could be designed for any purpose, and that versatility made them invaluable. From combat units to medical droids to mechanics, there was a droid for every task. Clones, on the other hand, were limited to one role: soldiers. Their inability to adapt beyond that was a significant flaw. Take the astromech droids, for example. They weren't just mechanics, they were navigators, hackers, and even pilots in a pinch. Clones couldn't begin to match that level of multifunctionality. The galaxy needed more than warriors. It needed problem solvers, and droids filled that gap. Even among battle droids, there was variety. Super battle droids and commando droids each had unique strengths. Clones were all cut from the same mold, and while they had some individuality, their potential was capped. A droid's design could evolve. A clone's couldn't. The ability to specialize gave droids a clear edge. Whether it was medical droids saving lives or protocol droids bridging cultural gaps, they proved their worth time and time again. The clones were a hammer in a galaxy that needed a toolbox. Droids were that toolbox. It's easy to see why people felt attached to the clones. They were human, after all, with names, personalities, and stories. But that emotional connection came at a cost. Leaders hesitated to send clones into danger, knowing the personal stakes. Droids didn't inspire that kind of reluctance. The Jedi, in particular, struggled with their bond to the clones. They saw them as more than soldiers, which made Order 66 all the more tragic. That same bond, though, could cloud judgment. Droids didn't have to earn loyalty or trust. They just did their job. When a clone died, it left a scar. Those losses weighed heavily on the Republic's leaders and soldiers alike. Droids didn't leave behind grief or regret. They were tools, replaceable and efficient. In the long run, that detachment was an advantage. The emotional ties to the clones were a double-edged sword. They made the war feel more human, but they also made it more painful. Droids spared the galaxy that heartache, focusing solely on the tasks they were built for. Droids endured long after the Clone Wars ended. They adapted to new roles, new masters, and new eras. Clones, however, faded into obscurity, their purpose fulfilled, and their time passed. The galaxy moved on, but the droids remained. R2-D2 and C-3PO are perfect examples of this. They were there from the beginning, witnessing the rise and fall of empires. Their legacy outshines that of any clone, not because they were better, but because they endured. Time is the ultimate test, and the droids passed it. Even the battle droids found new life. Some were repurposed, others reprogrammed, and many simply deactivated. But their influence on the galaxy couldn't be denied. They shaped the Clone Wars and the galaxy itself in ways the clones never could. The enduring presence of droids speaks to their superiority. They weren't just tools of war, they were companions, helpers, and symbols of progress. The galaxy wouldn't be the same without them. In the end, The debate between droids and clones isn't just about war, it's about what they represent. Clones were a tragic reflection of the Republic's flaws, while droids symbolize the galaxy's ingenuity and resilience. Their differences tell a story larger than the war itself. Droids weren't perfect, but their strengths outweighed their weaknesses. They were adaptable, durable, and efficient. Clones had heart, but that heart was their greatest vulnerability. The galaxy needed more than soldiers, and the droids delivered. As we look back on the Clone Wars, it's clear that droids were the better choice. Not because they were emotionless machines, but because they fulfilled a broader range of needs. Their legacy endures, while the clones remain a bittersweet memory. The war may be over, but the lessons remain. Droids were more than tools of war. They were the backbone of the galaxy. And in the battle between clones and droids, the machines ultimately won. Thanks so much for watching. I spend a good bit of time making sure each video is great. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really helps out and means a lot to me. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments. We'll see you in the next one.